Hey dudes, welcome back to RC Cars UK. Now today we're going to be looking at some chassis rails for the SST build. So the SST build is a 1/6 scale 6x6. Now what we do should I say, is use a square bar like this for a large scale 6 scale build. In the past I have used plasma cut aluminium and stuff like that to make some ladder rails. Great, but my supplier then went AWOL, so I couldn't get a hold of him. So for the last few years I've been using some square bar steel, so it's just hollow square bar steel. So I've seen a lot of people, what they do is they cut this square bar steel in half, using something like a grinder, or in this case a junior hacksaw, to go all the way through this and create a C-channel rail. Great, and the length is great because there's a metre in total here. But what we discovered when we put this up to the body itself was that the dog's legs are too high. So they're too high. If you notice, this is a standard TRX4 rail, and the dog's leg here is quite a shallow angle. There you go, the rise is a lot lower, and that enables you to use shorter shocks because obviously there's space for your hoops. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now. Chop here with a Dremel or a coping saw, a hacksaw, a grinder, whatever you're using, and then I'm going to go through here as well, and then you bolt in this section here into here and here. What I was going to do was use this here, which is 15.5 by 1.5. And what I found is that actually the ends slot in absolutely perfect. What I found though is that the middle section is actually over that. So the middle section on this is slightly wider this way across than it is at the end. There's slightly tapered ends on these, which I did not realise. So if you imagine that, actually, look, if you see there, slots perfectly in. Yeah, this side doesn't. So to combat that problem, what I found is some spring steel. Now this is off an old hacksaw arch, so the arch that goes on the top of a large hacksaw. This is spring steel, so this will slot over here, this box section, like so, and just bridge that gap in the middle. Right, so here we have the finished article of this join. If you can see the steel block washer that we've created just by cutting it out. So it's dual usage there. You can see we've maintained our gap, we've nipped it up nice and tight, and there's no play whatsoever. So fantastic. We're going to go ahead and do the other side now. Right dude, so here is attempt 2 at some chassis rails. I've only done the point up until the 4x4 section at the moment, the rest will come later. But basically, as we discussed before, they've got box sections cut out in there with a little square washer, if you will, inside, using the cutout itself as a washer. They've got a third bolt, which is just a stabilising bolt that goes all the way through both sides on the double wall. And yeah, they're really tough actually, they're pretty strong. So these are cut from TRX4 rails, as you know. And we're going to add some sections onto the other side now. Right dudes, here's the progress so far. You can see we've got our extended chassis rails here that we made out of the TRX4 frame rails. We're all hooked up at the back. We've got our 2 shock hoops on, our alley shock hoops here. What else have we got? We have got our drive shaft connected up. We've got a carbon plate here. We've got our first alley gearbox. I'm not quite so sure which way this is going to sit at the moment. I think I've obviously just sat that on the wrong way, but it's supposed to sit like this. There's going to be a cutout here obviously for the drive shaft, and one around here I think for this one in the carbon plate to let the shaft through. And that's hooking up to these CNC Firmonda AR60 axles at the back, as we saw in the first video. I've got my shock hoops on the front. I'm I've got the shocks hanging off there, and I've also now got just a front bar on to pin it to get the right width. And I've just made this piece up so it will sit like so, and slots into the rails like that, which is pretty cool. And that's going to be the first brace, and then there's also going to be one up here as well as the rear, and then we can continue the frame rails on at the back after that. We're just going to get our links set up in a minute as well. But yeah, cheers for watching. Right dudes, this is end of day one, and we've got our mock-up. We're using 2 rear axles, as you can see at the moment, and our mock-up's gone quite well actually, to be honest with you. We've got quite a few parts in now. We've got the brace in here, we've got the rear axles all set up to take the links. We've got quite a lot of links made up already, and we've just put our 4 links on the front. These are going to need some adjustment because I can tell the axle's quite clocked at the front, a bit more clocked than I wanted it to be. I don't mind sort of 10-15 degrees, but any more than that's a bit much really, so these bottom links will have to come back a little bit, I think, and be re-drilled. But apart from that, before the front axle goes on here, the proper front axle, and I can take this rear and go and pop it over the back. And that's about it for part 1. So thanks very much for sticking with us, and I'm sure you'll see more on part 2, where we will continue and stretch out our chassis, put the other gearbox on, link up the other drive shaft and the front axle that's here. The rear axle, sorry, that's front, that's going on here, and rear axle's going in the back. And that'll be pretty much it basically. All links will be put on, and we're waiting for our motors at the moment still, but we can pretty much get to a rolling chassis I think by the end of part 2. So thanks very much for watching part 1. Stick with us, part 2 will be out tomorrow, maybe the day after. Cheers guys.